My name is Tom, and I live a pretty ordinary life. Work, home, family, everything is like everyone else's. True, sometimes it seems to me that my wife, Lisa, lives at work. No, seriously. I'm starting to forget what she looks like without a business suit and an eternally frowning expression on her face. But I'm not complaining, because we have our own system. I take care of the house and garden, and Lisa seems to take care of the rest of the world. The main thing is that on weekends, we still spend time together. Well, or at least we try. And this time, we had grand plans. Lisa was going to go with her mother, Maria, to the garden center to choose plants for the country house. I even prepared a list of necessary seeds and seedlings, anticipating how we would all improve our plot together. But, as they say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans. The day before the planned trip, Lisa ran into the house looking like a person who had just had their last hope for a bright future taken away. "Tom, I have a catastrophe," she moaned, collapsing on the couch. "There's an emergency at work, an urgent project. I'll have to work all weekend." I sighed, mentally saying goodbye to my dreams of family gardening. Well, it's not the first time, not the last. "I understand, dear. It's okay, we'll go another time," I tried to comfort my wife, although I myself felt a slight disappointment. "But Mom, she was so looking forward to this trip. I don't want to let her down." Lisa looked at me guiltily, and then it dawned on me. "Why don't I go with Maria instead of you? I was going to the garden center for some little things anyway. I'll take a look at your plants at the same time," I offered, inwardly amazed at my own genius. Lisa beamed as if I had offered her at least world domination. "Really? Oh, Tom, you're a lifesaver. Mom will be so happy. You two have always gotten along great." It was the honest truth. Maria had always treated me warmly, almost like her own son, and our common interests in gardening had brought us closer together over the years. So the idea of spending a whole day with her doing my favorite activity seemed quite tempting. The only thing that caused concern was not to get too chatty and miss all the interesting things, while Maria would be recalling her turbulent youth. But I firmly decided that this day would be devoted only to plants. No lyrical digressions and heartfelt conversations, just business, nothing personal. Oh, if only I had known then how wrong I was. The morning turned out to be unusually sunny and warm, just perfect weather for a trip out of town. I drove up to Maria's house exactly at the appointed time, anticipating an eventful and productive day. Maria was already waiting for me at the gate, fit, energetic, in a bright flowery dress. Looking at her, it was hard to believe that this woman had already passed her 60s. "Tom, dear, how happy I am to see you." She hugged me impulsively, generously sharing her floral perfume. "Thank you for agreeing to keep me company." "Oh, come on, Maria. It's only a joy for me," I smiled, gallantly opening the car door for her. "Besides, I can't wait to see the new varieties of peonies myself." "Oh, you haven't seen their catalog yet? There are such specimens there, you'll be amazed." Maria eagerly joined the conversation, and we enthusiastically started talking about the upcoming purchases. The road to the garden center flew by unnoticed. We discussed our plans for arranging the plot, shared experiences of growing demanding plants, and recalled funny cases from gardening practice. "And do you remember how you confused onions with daffodils and almost treated us to poisonous soup?" Maria laughed, wiping away tears of laughter. "Hey, I was just starting to learn the basics of botany then," I pretended to be indignant. "But now I can tell basil from parsley with my eyes closed." "Well, yes, of course, especially if they are in the form of seasonings in the supermarket," Maria teased me, and we laughed again. By the time we reached our destination, the mood of both of us was simply excellent. The anticipation of successful purchases and pleasant company warmed the soul. And even thoughts of Lisa, toiling over an urgent project, no longer seemed so depressing. Maria and I cheerfully got out of the car and headed for the entrance to the garden center. On the threshold, I stopped for a moment, inhaling the intoxicating scent of flowers and earth. My gardener's heart beat faster. Here it is, my personal kingdom of flora. "Well, are you ready?" Maria winked at me, seeing my delight. "Now I'll show you varieties that will make you envy your own rose gardens." "Ah, Maria, you know how to intrigue a man," I laughed and gallantly offered her my arm. "Lead me into the world of beauty." And we, full of enthusiasm and light flirting, stepped into the fragrant rows of plants. Ah, if only I had known where else this seemingly innocent step would lead me. The next few hours flew by like a moment. Maria and I methodically walked through the rows of plants, carefully examining each specimen. I took a fresh look at my mother-in-law. It turned out she was a real encyclopedia of gardening. "Look, Tom, this variety of hydrangea is just made for your alpine hill," she said, gently stroking the delicate petals. "And here are luxurious clematis. They will look stunning on the arch at the entrance." I nodded, absorbing the information and making mental notes. It was surprisingly easy and pleasant with Maria. She not only knew the subject, but also knew how to captivate the interlocutor, to share her interest. Without realizing it myself, I began to tell her about my long-held dreams, to create a real garden with terraces, fountains, and gazebos drowning in flowers. Maria's eyes lit up with excitement. "That's grandiose, Tom! Why haven't you shared your ideas before? I'm sure you'd have a little piece of paradise." "Yeah, somehow I haven't gotten around to it," I shrugged. "Either there's no time or no energy. And to be honest, Lisa doesn't have time for my fantasies. She barely manages to get back from work before midnight." My voice involuntarily betrayed a note of bitterness. Maria looked at me with sympathy and suddenly covered my hand with hers. "I understand, dear. I went through the same thing myself when my husband disappeared at his firm for days on end. But you know, sometimes you need to think about yourself. Allow yourself to dream, to create, to enjoy life." From her touch, it was as if an electric shock ran through my body. I suddenly acutely felt the warmth of her skin, the light scent of her perfume, the softness of her gaze. Something lurched inside, making my heart skip a beat. The spell lasted only a moment. Maria took her hand away, and the moment was lost. We continued to wander slowly between the rows, but the atmosphere had already imperceptibly changed, as if some new nerve-tingling tension had hung in the air. When a few hours later we headed for the exit with a full cart of purchases, I felt a strange mixture of fatigue and excitement. And it was clearly not in anticipation of the planning work. "Well, why don't we stop by a cafe for a bite to eat?" Maria asked, as if by chance, nodding at a cozy terrace nearby. "I'm a little tired from running around." "With pleasure," I responded, realizing that a light lunch would be very welcome right now, and the opportunity to extend the communication with Maria seemed quite tempting. "At the same time, we'll discuss your purchases before we get to the dacha." Maria smiled slyly and took my arm. This simple gesture made something flutter pleasantly inside. "I'll take your word for it, son-in-law. Get ready. Now I'm going to pick apart all these pelargoniums and heucheras. I hope you're a tough nut to crack." I laughed, feeling the tension of the last few hours gradually letting go. After all, what's wrong with a friendly conversation with a smart and pleasant woman over a cup of coffee? I didn't suspect then that our nice lunch would be the beginning of something much more serious and exciting, and that soon I would have to take a fresh look not only at Maria, but also at myself. In the cafe, we settled on a terrace, drowning in greenery and flowers. A light breeze gently tousled hair, sun glare played on the snow-white tablecloth. The setting seemed to have come down from an advertising picture, romantic and cozy. We placed our order and continued our leisurely conversation. Maria remembered her youth, told how she and her husband arranged their first garden. "You know, he was also a terrible workaholic," she shared with a slight sadness. "Always at work, always busy, and I kept waiting for him to find time for me." I nodded, feeling how her words resonated inside with an unpleasant recognition, just like me and Lisa. "And what did you do?" I asked, leaning closer. I was suddenly insanely interested in how Maria coped with a situation so familiar to me. "Oh, I decided not to wait for the weather by the sea," she winked. "I took up the garden with my own hands. I studied landscape design, experimented with plants. It became my personal oasis, a salvation from loneliness." A passionate spark flashed in her eyes, and I involuntarily admired Maria. Now she looked like her daughter's age-mate, inspired, radiant. Only the wrinkles in the corners of her eyes and lips betrayed her years lived. But it only added charm to her appearance, a special charm. "And you know what's most amazing?" she continued. "The more I took care of the garden, the more my husband began to take an interest in me. He started coming home early to help with the beds, to admire the flowers. It was as if we got to know each other all over again, became closer. I thoughtfully twirled the cup of cooling coffee in my fingers. Maria's story touched me, made me look at my own marriage from a new angle. Maybe I should follow her example, do something for the soul, become more interesting to myself. And then maybe Lisa will remember that she has not only work, but also a loving husband. As if reading my mind, Maria covered my hand with hers. I started, acutely aware of the touch, warm, soft, and seemingly promising something more. Tom, honey, don't repeat our mistakes. Live your life to the fullest. Don't wait for everything to work itself out, and let your garden become your outlet, your little paradise on earth. I looked into her shining eyes and felt my heart clench with tenderness, and also with something strange, exciting. From the way Maria held her hand on mine a little longer than usual, the way she smiled slyly, batting her lashes, from her barely perceptible but so enchanting scent. The enchantment lasted only a moment. The next second, Maria had already moved away, reaching for the bill, and I sat there, stunned, trying to understand what had just happened. A figment of my imagination? Flirting? Or something much more serious and frightening? "Well, shall we go to the dacha, unload our riches?" Maria asked cheerfully, as if there had been no strange moment between us. I nodded, not trusting my voice. My thoughts were confused. My body was as if pricked by small needles. What's happening to me? Is one day in the company of a charming woman really enough to knock me off balance? No, it's clearly not about Maria. I just miss the attention, the ease of communication. So I react so acutely to simple friendly sympathy. Nothing to worry about. With these thoughts, I paid the bill and led Maria to the car. Ahead of us awaited exciting work on landscaping the country plot. And all the nonsense, like languishing glances and meaningful smiles, is better to throw out of my head right away. Only the heart, it seems, disagreed with this. And all the way to the dacha, it beat too quickly and loudly, as if anticipating the coming changes. Maria's dacha greeted us with gentle sun and birdsong. The air was fragrant with flowers and mown grass, just idyllic. It was hard to believe that somewhere out there in the big city, a hectic life was boiling with its stresses and problems. Maria and I amicably started unloading the plants, chatting about how best to place them. I felt excitement and inspiration. It had been a long time since I had enjoyed taking care of the garden so much. "And these beauties will look stunning along the path," Maria enthused, lovingly stroking the delicate petals of begonias. "Can you imagine what a riot of colors there will be here by midsummer?" I nodded, entranced not so much by her words as by Maria herself. The sun's rays tangled in her hair, her eyes sparkled with joy. Now she looked like a goddess of fertility, beautiful and mysterious at the same time. Having finished unloading, we decided to take a break on the veranda. Maria brought cold lemonade and homemade cookies, just what we needed after our righteous labors. Sitting in wicker chairs, we slowly sipped the tart drink and admired the view of the garden. "Oh, Tom, it's so good," Maria drawled dreamily, squinting like a well-fed cat. "If I could, I wouldn't leave this garden at all. Every moment here is magic." "That's right," I agreed, also feeling blissful. "Your husband didn't care much for country life?" Maria's face darkened slightly, and I immediately regretted my curiosity. It seems I inadvertently reopened old wounds. "No, what are you saying? He liked it here very much," she replied softly. "It's just, when he left, it was too painful for me to come here. Everything reminded me of him, of our life." I thought I wouldn't survive the pain. I was silent, not knowing how to comfort her. To say banalities like "time heals" seemed sacrilegious. So I just covered Maria's hand with mine, trying to convey my sympathy and support. She started and raised her eyes to me, glistening with unshed tears. At that moment, Maria seemed so vulnerable, so lost. I wanted to hug her, to protect her from all the sorrows of the world. Instead, I just squeezed her fingers tighter, stroking the back of her hand with my thumb. It was an innocent gesture of comfort, nothing more. But for some reason, the very air around us suddenly became thick and viscous, as if electrified. "Thank you, Tom," Maria whispered, not taking her eyes off me. "Thank you for listening, and for being here today. I really appreciate it." From her words, from her intonations, my mouth suddenly went dry. I looked at Maria and realized that I was falling into those green lakes of her eyes, drowning in their shimmering depths. And I no longer wanted to swim back to the surface of my familiar life. I don't know how it happened, as if some unknown force pulled me forward, making me lean towards Maria's face. Our lips met, timidly, almost weightlessly. It lasted only a moment, but it seemed to me that a whole eternity had passed. And then Maria gasped convulsively and leaned forward, pressing her lips to my mouth in an insistent kiss, and all good intentions, all arguments of reason shattered to pieces. I kissed her greedily, uncontrollably. I buried my fingers in her hair, explored the silkiness of her lips with my tongue. Maria responded with no less ardor, cupping my face with her hands. It was like insanity, a feverish delirium eclipsing reality. In those moments nothing mattered. Neither my reputation as an exemplary husband, nor Maria's status as a mother-in-law. There was only us, our ragged breathing, our entwined hands, the heat of our bodies. And the crazy, irresistible attraction that flared between us like a forest fire. When we finally tore ourselves away from each other, reality came crashing down on us like an icy wave. We looked into each other's eyes, unable to say a word. In Maria's pupils, there was the same shock, the same mixture of horror and delight that I myself experienced. "Tom, what was that?" She finally exhaled, touching her lips, swollen from kisses, with her fingers. I had no answer, not a single reasonable explanation for the recklessness we had just dared, except that, "It was beautiful, Maria. Crazy, but so right," I blurted out, looking into her eyes. "I don't know how it happened. I just couldn't help myself." She bit her lip, looking away. A feverish blush bloomed on her cheeks. "Me too, Tom. I didn't expect it from myself," Maria confessed with a nervous chuckle. And then she added sternly, "But this must not happen again. We can't. We have no right. You have a family. I have a daughter. It's wrong." I knew she was right. I knew, but I desperately didn't want to agree with it, because I had already tasted the forbidden fruit, and I wasn't sure I could give it up. But there was nothing to be done. We couldn't destroy what we had built over the years. We couldn't betray the trust of our loved ones, break their hearts, no matter how great the temptation. So I just nodded, hiding the bitterness deep inside. "Of course, Maria, you're right. What happened? It was just a moment of weakness. It won't happen again." She smiled weakly, and there was so much sadness in that smile that my heart ached. But there was no choice. We had to bury the feelings that had surged up, pretend that nothing had happened, even if every cell of my being would remember and crave a continuation. The next few weeks were not easy for me. My thoughts kept returning to that kiss, to the whirlwind of emotions it stirred up in my soul. Seeing Maria at family gatherings, keeping my distance, avoiding even accidental touches, all this required a lot of effort. But gradually, the sharpness of the experience began to dull. I found myself thinking more and more that the memories of my moment of weakness with Maria no longer evoked the same thrill. Yes, it was an exciting episode, but you shouldn't attach too much importance to it. After all, we are both adults and reasonable people. We have families, obligations, an established way of life. Chasing a ghostly passion, destroying what has been built over the years, that would be the height of irresponsibility. Moreover, my love for Lisa didn't go anywhere. Yes, our relationship has cooled down a bit lately, but there's nothing unusual about that for long-term married couples. The main thing is that we are still together. We value and support each other. So I decided to focus all my efforts on bringing the spark and thrill back into my marriage with Lisa. I began to arrange romantic surprises more often, to be interested in her affairs and experiences. And gradually the ice began to melt. We became closer again, began to talk more heart to heart, like in our youth. At the same time, I took up the arrangement of the garden with renewed zeal. Let every plant now remind me not of a fleeting infatuation, but of the beauty and harmony of family life that Lisa and I create together. As for Maria, we silently agreed never to mention what had happened between us. It will remain our secret, hidden from prying eyes. We both made a choice in favor of duty and loyalty, and that is worthy of respect. Of course, some part of me will always keep warm memories of that special day and the feelings it stirred up. But it will be a bright sadness, not an excruciating passion. After all, True happiness, as it turned out, has always been near, in the face of my beloved wife and our strong family. Gradually, life returned to its usual course. Lisa and I became even closer and more tender with each other, trying to spend every free minute together. And even if sometimes I was overwhelmed by echoes of past experiences, I resolutely dismissed them, focusing on what was really important. On weekends, the whole family worked in the garden, bringing to life grand plans for its transformation. Even Lisa, with all her busyness, tried to carve out time for these joint projects. And our garden really blossomed, becoming a pride and joy. Maria and I also managed to return the former ease in communication. Family holidays were filled with an atmosphere of joy and emotional warmth. We could talk for a long time about plants, share gardening experiences, but already without that oppressive emotional subtext. Of course, it is impossible to erase everything that was between us from memory in one fell swoop. Sometimes I noticed Maria's thoughtful or slightly sad gaze directed at me. And I myself sometimes caught myself thinking, what if? But these reflections no longer carried the former bitterness, the former tension. We both accepted what happened as a kind of lesson, a test that helped us realize the true value of what we have. And this shakeup did us good. It made us cherish our better halves even more, to protect the family hearth. Now, looking back, I understand, probably everything in life happens for a reason, and our short clouding with Maria was also not accidental. It gave us the opportunity to look at ourselves and our relationships from the outside to reevaluate priorities. Yes, the temptation was great, but we managed to overcome it, remaining faithful to those we truly love. And now our feelings for our spouses have only become stronger and deeper. After all, sometimes you need to be on the edge of the abyss to fully realize how much your loved ones mean to you. So thank you, life, for all the lessons and trials. Thank you for the opportunity to become better, wiser, to learn to value what you have. The kiss with Maria will forever remain in my memory as a reminder that there is always a place for temptation in life. But love and loyalty are not just pretty words. It is a daily choice and painstaking work on relationships, and I know it's worth it. After all, true happiness is when you fall asleep and wake up next to the one you love more than life. When you build common plans together, share joys and sorrows. When each new day is filled with the warmth and light of your mutual love. And I am grateful to fate for sending me such an amazing wife as Lisa. With her, I am ready to go through any trials, to conquer any heights, because together we are one, and no fleeting temptation can destroy this unity. Lisa and I have a whole life ahead of us, and I will do everything to fill it with harmony and happiness, and our garden will become a living embodiment of our love, every year more and more lush, blooming, bringing joy to everyone around. And let the memories of that special day with Maria forever remain in my heart, not as a symbol of fleeting passion, but as a reminder of the priceless gift that I almost lost because of stupidity, about my real and only love, for which I am ready to move mountains. Thank you, my dear Lisa, for always being there, for believing in me and inspiring me to be better. With you, I feel that nothing is impossible, and let the whole world wait when we are together, growing our garden, growing our love. Day after day, year after year. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.